As the mother of a 10-year-old, as well as a former substitute teacher, I find it shocking that in 2022, my son is learning the very same things that I learned about Martin Luther King Jr. 20 years ago. Schools are still not giving students an accurate history about the country that they live in. Critical race theory is not about blaming, it's about understanding the whole history, past and present, good and bad.
Well, the problem is you can have a curriculum, but there are individual differences in the way that it's taught. And there are a lot of abuses in the way that it's being taught. And should parents have a say on whether their children should learn ethnic studies in school? And does this divide students and make some feel guilty and depressed? Now, joining our conversation virtually is Toccara, who says she has to teach her own children critical race theory because it is not even allowed in her district. So Toccara, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you're having to fill in the voids where they're just simply not being taught in school. So why isn't it, why do you think critical race theory isn't a one-sided story when others say that it is?
Well, because race in itself isn't just about black and white. There are other races in this country that would be represented in these classes. And I think it's unfair to not only them, but to the subject of slavery and Black history when we decide, because I hear people using the term cherry picking a lot. There is a lot of cherry picking that's done, and a lot of it is done to prevent students from understanding the full context and things that happened. My son came home with a assignment about something called sectionalism. And up until he brought this assignment home, I never even heard of that. But it outright said that there was no slavery there was no slavery in the North. There was no slavery in the West. And that slavery only occurred in the South. That in itself shocked me because I then had to correct my son and explain to him that there were absolutely enslaved Africans in the West as well as in the North. So I think that the cherry picking is not just a one-sided situation. The race conversation isn't just a Black issue. Indigenous people are oftentimes not represented accurately. Chinese people that immigrated to this country, Mexican people and their contributions as well are rarely ever brought home, or I see my son learning about these things in his social studies classes.
I think people do look at it as a black-white situation most of the time, and that is a misrepresentation.
I think that the whole point of this conversation that people are missing is that the pushback on critical race theory, right, which is not even being taught in schools, but the pushback on critical race theory is that it's gonna make people feel bad. And I keep bringing that up for a reason. It's because, and I wanna put it in a different context. So you're a therapist, right? And let's say that there's somebody who needs to have an intervention. Let's say that they're an alcoholic because they're destroying their family, they're destroying themselves. So you bring them into a room, there's gonna be a conversation, you have a car that's ready to take them to a facility so they can change their life. Do we say, you know what, we're not gonna have that conversation because it makes people feel uncomfortable, right? Or it's gonna make them feel bad. No, we tell them the truth because it's in that truth that that's where the power is gonna be for them to change their lives. And our nation has a bad truth. It has a bad history, and the only way for us to be able to change that and to move forward is for us to be truthful about what took place. America is not all rainbows and glitter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, but hold on. You said a couple of things in the predicate of your setup for this conclusion that you're drawing that I don't accept. First off, you say critical race theory is not being taught in schools, and that is simply not true. Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.